Hello. Today we will give a presentation on saving energy for ADL. My name is Daphne Kos. I'm an occupational therapist and professor in occupational therapy in the National MS Center of Melsbroek and in the University of Leuven.
Hello everyone, I'm Sofie Ferdinand. I'm also an occupational therapist and I'm the coordinator of a multidisciplinary team in Melsbroek.
We have no conflicts of interests. And then if we look at our lives, we have actually a lot of activities where we are active in and we like to do, we have to do on the domains of work, of leisure, of family life and role and friendship, and yeah, a lot of things to do. If we then look at the life of people with MS, they all have these activities as well, and these roles and these responsibilities, but they also have to deal with their symptoms. And they have to take medication, they have to deal with symptoms like fatigue and pain, and have to do some exercises to work on that. They have to work on their voice, on their speech, on their swallowing. They have to do some consultations with doctors and therapists. So they have a lot of other things as well. And yeah, it's quite challenging to manage all this. In a study provided by or performed by Matuska and Erickson some while ago, that it was clear that especially for women in MS, life was based on basic needs. And people were engaged in, of course, their basic needs to work or to live with MS, with the disease. But it also means that they wanted to create meaning. They want to have something that is valuable in their lives. And they want to meet relevant goals. They want to go for an important goals and then do some activities or use strategies to go there. They wanted to feel engaged in activities, but also in relationships with family and friends. And if we all look at this, you can already notice that if we have additional constraints for these basic needs, all the others are compromised. And if we then have a further look on the people with advanced MS and the further stages of the disease, we have performed a study by our own some years ago, and well, actually, where some people may have more challenging needs more challenging strategies to deal with all the activities and to get things done within their time. In the advanced stages, very often people have to kill their time. They have to, their activities that are no longer able to do, and then their interests will stay. They do have the same interest, but they're no longer able to do them themselves. And yeah, sometimes there's a lot of free time, so that's another challenge.
MS population in Melsbroek ranges from people with minimal complaints until people with severe MS who are bedridden, and expressed here with the EDSS, the Expanded Disability Status Scale. The scoring ranges from 1 till 10, and the higher the score, the more severely disabled someone is. This scale is often used in the literature, but does not always provide a complete picture of patients' functional limitations. The lower EDSS scores are treated in TMST, and TMST is a transmural MS team, and care programs are organized in different sessions about topics as fatigue, employment, an orientation program, support program. Patients follow these programs as outpatients. Then a next group are patients with limits on various surfaces. They are treated in a multidisciplinary program of minimum 3 weeks, and it is custom made. The different disciplines formulate their rehabilitation goals, and goals are smart made, and the disciplines are working together on these goals. For example, a patient can empty his letterbox again in 3 weeks is the goal. The physio, they walk with the patients and they train the condition, the physical condition. The OT try out an aid like a relator, and the social service and OT together, they make an application for the government for financial support for paving the driveway, for example. The nurse, they make observations if there is less energy and how is the energy spread during the day. Are they more fatigued in the evening, and is the walking then less safe? The psychologists, they support in process of asking help in the evening when the fall risk is higher, for example. And this group of patients need support by the process how to save energy and where do they want to use or spend their energy, and which activities I don't do myself anymore to keep energy, for example, for other things. For another example, a nurse come to wash me, so I have enough energy to go to the computer class in the afternoon. The last group in blue, that's the progressive MS group. Here is the environment of the patients very important. Patients are no longer able to formulate meaningful activities. Often cognitive impairments impacts their decent lives, and they lose taking initiative or making choices. The executive functions are disturbed. And in Melsbroek, is this a group where the focus is slightly less on intensive revalidation, but rather on preserving possibilities, experience a nice activity like shopping, to go to the movie, the market, and saving energy for ADL can mean here the patient stays in bed until 12 o'clock because there is a shopping in the afternoon and it is too exhausting to stay in a wheelchair all day. When we add the rehabilitation approaches, can we say that restorations rather applies in the first group, and the more people are affected, compensations and adaptations is more applicable? Some more examples of restorations are of functions are training of hand functions, lung capacity, swimming, a balance exercise, cognitive exercise, hand bike, or motomats. Then some examples of compensations are sitting during ironing, bicycle with arm support, a notebook, adapted knife. And then some examples of adaptations are an adapted bedroom, a wide and paved path, or an adapted car, for example.
If we take this perspective back to one of the models of occupational performance used in occupational therapy, we can place all these in the framework with person, environment, and activity occupation as separate entities. And the overlap between these three elements is called the occupational performance. And when we have a larger overlap, there is a better occupational performance. As you can see here in the slide, we have a good occupational balance, what we call, when there is a lot of overlap between person, activity, and the environment. And you can see in the small picture at the bottom of the slide that there is also a kind of timeline. So we have a certain occupational performance at this moment, but if we looked at throughout time, these how can I say this? The balance between those domains can vary, can change over time. How can we assess occupational balance? Well, there are three different ways of doing so. We can look at domains, and if we look at the domains, then we can think of different life domains where we spend time and energy in. We can also think of the meaning or the dimension. I will come back to that later on. And also we can measure or try to assess time use. How much time do you spend in specific activities? If we look at the report of domains, then we can have different domains like self-care, work, study, leisure, rest, relationship, and care for others, where we can have a look like what is the time and energy you spend in all these domains, and if there is when there is something that is not really in balance, we can try to work on that if that is also important for that person. If we focus on the meaning of activities, or the meaning or occupational balance seen from a perspective of meaning, we can think of activities we have to do versus activities we want to do. We can also think of self-rewarding activities, relaxing activities, pleasing others, and also on energy consuming versus energy providing activities, and we will come back to that later on as well. And then for time use, we always, we often use the graphs, as you can see here. Sofie will talk about this a bit later on, but now where we have this different domains on self-care, productivity, and leisure, and see how much time is spent in these different domains, and if there's a kind of graph where people want to go to, which is a desired situation, and it's not in line with the current situation, we try to work on that with them. And one of the tools we use is the Life Balance Inventory, the LBI, and actually, the LBI is working on the domains and on the one hand, and on time use on the other hand. And domains is done by having a list of 53 items, activities, where people have to reflect on, do I do these activities or do I want to do these activities? And they have to mark yes or no. And the second step is, for these activities you do or you would like to do, how much time and energy do you spend on these activities? And if it is right, if it is about right for me, then you are in balance for that activity. You can also mark always or sometimes less than I want, or some time more or always more than I want, and then you're out of balance. So this is actually how you can approach this. We are not measuring the real time, but we are measuring the perception on the time spent in those activities. And this for the 4 domains provided in the Life Balance Inventory: health, identity, relationship, and challenge. So let's start working now with you, and we would like you to think about these 3 activities. So doing things with friends, participating in educational opportunities, or communing with nature. If you see these 3 activities, do you do these activities, or would you like to do these activities? So you can think about this yourself and answer yes or no. And then for all the activities you scored yes, you can indicate how satisfied you are with the time spent on these activities during the last 4 weeks, as it is asked in the Life Balance Inventory. We are not asking you to really mark these now, but it is always a good, also with patients with or people with MS, to reflect on this. So we ask people to complete the complete survey, to mark all the 53 items, and then we go in conversation with them, and we try to we ask which influences are important for your score. Do you want to change this? This is also important. Do they want to change anything about this? And if they do, why would you like to change it? Or if they don't, why not? and how can we change this? And this is, of course, something then the therapist can support in the rehabilitation process. So I will give you some time now to think about this for yourself, and then we come back to concrete examples afterwards.
So to illustrate what the load of an activity can be, we look to the transfer of this man. So after 4 minutes, he finally sits on the side of his bed, and this is what you see after 1 minute. Try to imagine for yourself how much time it takes to come out of your bed. This is after 2 minutes. After 3 minutes. And after 4 minutes, he finally sits on the sides of his bed. Here you can consider what the value is of doing the transfer without help. How is the energy cost for him, and what are all the activities he has to do during the day? With limited energy, patients have to make choices and spend their energy smart. In terms of energy management, we try to visualize the energy by a battery. We reach them guidelines, tips and tricks to dose their energy and to refill the battery. And recuperation is hereby very important. There are different ways to recuperate, and against relaxation, I want to mention other concepts. So relaxation in a different point of view. And rest must be seen broader. So we know rest like rest during a day or a good sleep during night, but rest in the point of view of a good recuperation can also be doing a joyful activity, of having fun. It can also bring some energy. So find out what are your energy givers and what are your energy takers. And this is a very personally, and it's, in working with patients, it's ask an individual approach. For example, for me, an energy giver is making a walk with my dog, even when I get physically tired of this. So alternating physical and mental activities is very important to manage a limited amount of energy. So I would like to link the topic of intimacy and sexuality here. We notice that intimacy has a meaningful activity and often fades into the background. In Melsbroek, there is a team who guides patients, but also guides our teams in this topic. The team considers of a rehab doctor, a nurse, an OT, a physio, and a psychologist. And the multidisciplinary approach is based on the quantum model. And a quantum model maps sexual functioning, promotes communication in a couple, and search opportunities to increase sexual stimuli. Excitement and time are the parameters and are visualized on a curve, like you see. Physical aspects, sensory aspects, and thoughts and feelings are discussed. The role of an OT here is to advise how to manage a good hygiene, because hygiene here is very important. Is there a need for aids? Also advice about adaptations at home, energy management, advice when sensitivity is reduced. There is a box of joy available where they can see different examples of sex tools, and depending on the disability, patients can make choices and try some tools out.
Okay, if we then look again at the three elements of the occupational performance model, the person, activity, and environment, now we can think of different strategies to manage time and energy. And we start with the person, and well, actually the first thing in the person is to create awareness, and we use these diaries and tools to have a kind of registration of the activities people do in a day and in a week and in their lives, to create some awareness on that. But it also has to do with acceptance and to allow help. We also try to show some preferences and communicated about this and changed standards and set goals. We will go a bit further on that later on. So, for example, for the awareness, we use diaries, and this is an example of an electronic diary where people can register the activities they do, the time spent in these activities, and the satisfaction with performing these activities. And if we do that for a certain period of time, people can have an idea on the time spent, but also on how they feel about this. Are these activities providing energy, or are they taking energy away, like Sofie mentioned? And if people have to spend a lot of energy in their daily life, in their personal care, as we saw in the video, where a lot of energy and time was spent in getting out of bed, there was no energy and time, well, maybe some time, but at least the energy left for other activities is then reduced. So that's all important to get the whole picture here. Asking for help, that's also very important, and that's very often very difficult because it has to do with with acceptance of the disease and of disabilities. And we always try to get to build a confidence in the person and making clear that asking help is not giving into the disease. It's kind of taking control over the activities you want and have to do. There are different tools to create awareness in your activity level and types of activities. And well, what we ask people is to create a week overview by paper diaries, as you can see on the left-hand side of the slide. But what we also use is some devices, some electronic devices, like the Fitbit or any other smartwatches, where you really can have a good view on what is the actual performance, because that doesn't always match with what people think they do. And that's the same goes for us, by the way. But sometimes there is a discrepancy between what is reported in the diaries and what is measured in these devices. We used the LBI at the bottom of the slide. We have seen that before. And we also use the domains provided, actually that is based on the COPM, the Canadian Occupational Performance Measure, where we ask people to rate the activities within the domains of the self-care, productivity, and leisure, and then we can see how these domains are covered in their lives and whether or not that is reflecting what their desired balance is. So that is really important. So as you can see here, the part of leisure is much smaller than the part of self-care and productivity. And if people are okay with that, that's no problem. I mean, we don't have to change that if there is nothing, nothing to change there. If we look at the adjustment modes in the trajectory of progressive people with MS, we can see, well, if people have small struggles in the beginning of the disease, very often these are some small struggles, and nowadays the diagnoses are made much earlier, so people will know sooner when the struggles are related to MS as well. But very often, people will maintain things as usual, and that's a kind of pre-mode of adjustment where people are just dealing with all the struggles, and as long as this works for them, nothing changes. But at a certain point, the struggles become larger, become more comprehensive, have more impact on their lives. And then there are three strategies they can use. They can scale back, and they can try to reduce activities, reduce their expectations. That's actually what we often experience and what we often advise as well. Do you have to clean the whole house in one day, and do you have to clean it every week? And at this level, you can also try to think of maybe a reduction in that energy expenditure. On the other side, you can find alternatives. Maybe if the full-time working is no longer possible, maybe people can then go to part-time jobs, or maybe another role in their work that is asking less energy. And they can resign as well. And the resigning is actually the situation we try to avoid, that people really say like, no, I'm just doing nothing. I don't want to do anything. So that is actually what we try to avoid. But of course, there are a lot of influences there, especially the environment plays a very important role. The relationship with their partner, but also with other family members, with friends, with colleagues maybe, and also the emotional reactions people have and how they are standing in their lives. So this is all impacting on how people adjust to their disease. So that's the theoretical framework we very often use implicitly actually in practice. So that is actually on the person level. And if we then look at a level of environment, we can think of adaptation of physical environment. We can think of also again creating or stimulating awareness, but then from an environmental perspective. Use social environments or use devices and modeling with peers. And here you can see some examples of adaptations in the environment where people can better cope with their time and energy. Here you can see an example of a device for outdoor mobility. It's called App on Wheels. It's developed in Belgium, where people have a nice view on how the environment is actually accessible for them with a specific profile. So you can people can first enter what's their profile. In this case, I'm a wheelchair user, but you can also mention like I'm able to walk, but difficult to take stairs, for example. And then in real time, actually, in the map, you can see all the accessible locations in different areas. So the toilets, but also the pubs, restaurants, musea, and things like that. So it's very easy for them to match their profile with the environment. And of course, this is also a good tool to create some awareness at policy level, where you can see, okay, this is an area where a lot of things are well accessed, but in another area maybe there are a lot of things that are not accessible. So there need to be something changed to get more accessibility for people with disabilities. And then finally, we can think of at the activity level, and I already mentioned some things there, but what we very often do is to ask people to prioritize meaningful occupations or activities. What is important for you and how much time would you like to spend in that? And then we will try to find how they can perform these activities in the end. Another important strategy is to plan ahead and balance time use, as we saw already in that video again. Like okay, is this really what you want? You can do this as an exercise maybe, to get up in bed without any aid or without any physical help. And if people are willing to do that, it's okay. But if there is no energy left for other things that are maybe more important for them, yeah, we try to think about this. And we also ask to think about maybe another activity, another way of performance, of activity performance. We provide some advice on regular sleep and to use devices to support this process. And you can see some examples here for getting out of the bed. For example, you can use a hand grip that is fixed on the bed and that is making things much more easy. Easy slides where you can slide easily in the bed. So all these assistive devices, yeah, people can of course use to make life easier. And then at the left side of the slide, you can see someone who is painting with her mouth, and this is also something that sometimes is advised to do an activity otherwise than when other things are not possible, no longer possible maybe.
The next video illustrates an activity of baking waffles and cookies. The lady does the shopping and together with some other patients, she bakes waffles and cookies. Observe how a person with limited energy is doing this activity and experience the difference with the way you're doing the same activity. Think about the principles of energy management, need of saving energy for ADL, your energy givers and energy takers, choices and priorities, recuperation time. As an OT, we have a very important task to support people in this process and to empower them. Empowerment may include making choices in order to spend time and energy in meaningful activities. The text in the video is in Dutch, but it is quite obvious what the lady is doing.
Okay, so after this nice video, we have come to the take-home messages. And well, first of all, as Sofie already mentioned, relaxation is more than taking a rest. You can also relax in enjoyable activities. We have to empower people by creating awareness to manage energy, both for ADL, but also in other activities. We are also supporting the balance and performance of meaningful activities, including ADL. And we have to take into account the person, activity, and environment in that whole process. And we should focus on now and here, because that is what people are working on in the rehabilitation process. But we also have to look at long-term balance and sometimes make decisions there that are anticipating on future situations. We would like to end this presentation with a quote by a person with MS who visits the National MS Center in Melsbroek. And she says, "Living with MS is high-level sport," they say, and I can only confirm this. And so I run. I do not run against MS. I do not run for MS. I just run. And it shows very nicely how people can go on with their lives despite their MS. So finally, if you are interested in MS rehabilitation and want to hear more of these kind of things, you can either go to the RIMS conference, the International Network for Rehabilitation in Practice and Research, or you can visit the website. There are several webinars organized that are freely accessible, and you can find them on the website and have a look on all the activities we perform. So we would like to thank you for listening to us, and should you have any questions, please reach out to us through the email addresses. Bye.
Bye.